This is the Harmonic Motion Podcast, a place where you, dear listener, can join with automotive aftermarket professionals as they delve into and discuss the matters which matter.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Harmonic Motion Podcast. We're here with a group of diagnostic technicians and some of the team from Technical Topics to have a conversation about all things technical. So sit back and relax and enjoy the conversations that unfolds with the guys in the room. So I'd like to start by welcoming the guys in the room, and we're going to go around the table and let the guys introduce themselves, give you a little bit of background about what their name is, where they come from, and what they're up to down at Technical Topics. And so I'm going to start with our first guest.
Michael Moyes. I'm from Fife in Scotland. Come down to complete the Diagnostic Tech programme, try and fill in some of the gaps in knowledge that we're coming across with modern technology.
Cool stuff. Thanks, Michael. Yep, awesome. And next to Michael, we've got
Wesley Holmes from Wakefield.
All the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm down here just trying to learn as much as I can, everything, just get involved with everything about fixing cars.
Yeah, awesome. No, good stuff. Thanks, Wes. And then next to Wes,
Dave Everson from Liverpool. I'm down here just like these guys, trying to just expand my knowledge in this vastly, rapidly changing world.
Cool stuff. Excellent. Thanks for that, David. And last but not least,
Rob Drinkwater. Some of you will know me, some of you won't. Do a bit of teaching down here at TTHQ. And generally when I'm not down here, I may well have my head under the bonnet of a car fixing a car. So, yeah, do all sorts of stuff as well as the teaching.
Excellent. Great stuff. Thanks, guys. Welcome to the podcast. I know it's a bit daunting to get going. It's your first time. It's all a bit weird, I know, headphones and microphones, but we're going to jump straight in. And I wanted to ask you guys about your experience of increasing technology or complexity of vehicles as we see them today, and thinking about, since you've been doing the job, what sort of things have you noticed that are different now than when you started? I'm going to come to Michael with that one.
Yeah, so in recent times we've seen we have to jump over to dealer tools a lot more often. Just somewhere with the aftermarket diagnostic tools just can't fill in the gaps. Say for secure gateway unlocks, winding back some calipers, just things like that. We have to jump over to the dealer tools more often. So yeah, you have to invest in a lot more equipment. Yeah,
the complexity, I think that's a really good one, actually. Secure gateways, an interesting, from the manufacturer's perspective, the reason they've done it is obviously for cybersecurity, and a kind of unintended consequences. It makes even some of the basic stuff now very difficult. I don't know, have you got aftermarket tools that do some gateway stuff? Have you got tools that do a bit, but not everything?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I think the problem is often now, maybe when you get a car, is you don't know if you've got the capability. I think maybe you're alluding to the dealer tools give you a bit of confidence, don't they? Whereas if you've got several aftermarket tools and you pick one and you go, right, I'm going to do the service light on this, and it doesn't, you're sort of, it could be 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes out of the job to get the laptop out, to fire it up, to have a ticket, to open a session, to make a connection, to find the interface, only to then get it logged in and it wants a firmware update, which is another download from the server, and 25 minutes to flash the new software in the interface. I think that, I don't know, I find that probably a bit of a bigger challenge, IT as part of the job, pure IT. How do you get on with that, Michael? Do you do that stuff yourself, or?
Yeah, I get most of that stuff done myself, yeah.
Yeah. Do you, how do you fit that into the sort of working week, or do you have a time where you get therapy on all the laptops, or you just sort of do it as they come?
I just try and sort of do it as I go, depending on the requirements of the jobs.
Yeah. It is tricky. It is definitely, I think it's maybe not seen by definitely people that drive cars. And I suppose I also get the feeling that people that have been out of the workshop, that are in other roles that used to be technicians, if you've not been a tech in the last, 5 or 10 years, you probably don't really know how tricky that whole software piece has gone. We've got fibre to the building, so we've got monsterly quick Ethernet, connections through the workshop and to connect to the outside world. Because some of what we found with, unless you've got awesome internet, is of course your speeds for doing stuff can take forever. And one of the ones, I don't know if you've got the Volkswagen tool, if you've ever done any of those downloads there, some of the files are massive. And obviously update time, you think I'll just flash an update on this laptop and I don't know, 28 gigs later, She's still chuntering away. The smoker's coming out. So yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, IT's a challenge. Wes, what about you? What have you noticed that's different between I won't say the good old days, but recent times?
Well, when I first started, there were no laptops or anything. So, but I've not really got any genuine tools. They're all aftermarket tools. But what have I noticed that's completely different? It's just getting harder to keep up to date with everything.
Yeah.
The way it all changes all the time.
What do you think of vehicle technology, the systems and ways stuff works, or as well as that, the software angle and updates and that kind of thing?
Well, the software. I used what's it called? Garage Vitals. They just set me FDRS up.
Oh, nice.
Because I use it with me Bosch pass-through.
Oh, ideal.
Yeah. Before that, I've been using Forescan.
Yeah.
Which is good. It's a lot easier. It's quicker and easier.
Yeah.
But like, if I need to, if I've got any like tricky AdBlue jobs where maybe need to check for updates or things like that, I get on FDRS or maybe resets.
Yeah.
AdBlue resets, things like that.
Yeah. No, interesting. And a case that springs to mind that again was raised earlier this week, was about Ford. Actually, it was about extended cranking time on transits. So boys change the filter and they haven't bled it properly, and they go to the key to wind it over for 25 minutes to drag the fuel up, and then the dashboard freaks out and goes extended cranking time exceeded, drops a code, and then it won't crank. Have you come across that?
Yeah, I've had that one.
Yeah, and so that's, again, one of the cases, really, going back to Michael's point, how it's got more complicated and software related, that requires a flash potentially from a dealer tool into the instrument cluster to clear that down, to enable you to resume, basically get the van back to the way it was when it turned up at the workshop, because during that process, the guy that was bleeding it didn't follow the service info. And kind of, I think that's one of the things that's changed a little bit, where we used to carry out some of the techniques that we would employ, in 10 or 15 years ago, just crank it over and have a pause and crank it over and have a pause to bleed it. Now are completely unacceptable. There's a bleed function in the tool, and you have to read the service info, and you have to make sure the tank's half full, and then the bleed process takes half an hour with the ignition on and the battery support unit. I think there are technicalities in the job that probably mean dealer tool, and I think probably a bit of info as well. So where I think your FDRS gets you a win as well, that subscription gives you access to the PTS, the professional technical system as well. So you got bulletins and service info. So I've seen that as well. Bleeding the fuel systems, like on V-dubs with Delphi injectors. If you don't bleed them properly, valves lock up, and you can be cranking for hours. It could be a right pain in the arse when valves lock up. You end up either having pulled injectors out and maybe put them on test bench or something. Well, I'm lucky because I've got a test bench. If you've got one, but it can be a right pain if you can't bleed system properly. And again, that's kind of service info. You need to know that before you stumble across that, because that is going to put you so far behind the curve on a job, isn't it? If you get this fuel system open for something and then you go to run it again and it won't. Right, thing came in running and you've now made it in a no start condition, and potentially looking at 4 injectors at a couple £100 a piece.
Drive it in, push it out.
And the job's gone.
Never a good thing, is it?
No, it doesn't instill confidence in your client. But that's I think where service info and sort of understanding some of the things that were different now. That's a really good example, actually. Injectors and the the AdBlue cranking. Yeah. Whereas again, I find the aftermarket tools, with a few exceptions, I probably think the big green machine has got the best technical support package built in with the SI. That does give Bosch, you that, on the Bosch, gives you that kind of stuff. But some of the Chinesium tools, no names, no patrils, when you press the help page, it basically fires up Google. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, they've definitely missed a trick there. But it's not they're not in their gift. They're cheap for a reason, and the reason they're cheap is they don't give you the full thing. But interesting stuff, cool stuff. And David, about you and your view then, things that have changed from when you started?
Pretty much what we've covered there. I've just seen a lot more coding, programming, and procedures as well. Procedures have got much more difficult, longer, more complex.
Yeah.
Just nothing simple anymore.
No.
As you say, even just changing a fuel filter just is not simple anymore.
No, it can be dry. And and I suppose, when you think about, I know because you do a lot of vans at your place, you do
fair few, yeah.
I mean, body control module stuff that gets water ingress, where you would think, oh, that's pretty basic job, but it maybe smokes a BCM, water gets into the body control module, and now the lights don't work or the indicators won't work, and now that car's an MOT failure, and it needs a fuse box, and the fuse box is kind of linked to security, and whether you can get new. I think that's one of the things I think that I've noticed in since COVID is about part supply. If you happen to have something that goes wrong, we used to say, steer away from used parts. Don't go down the second-hand route. That's just not acceptable. Professional repair goes to the OE and buys the new box. And what we're finding now is a lot of stuff has gone end of life even before the vehicle's 10 years old. You can't get a control unit. The EPROMing and programming stuff that we've sort of got into 15, 20 years ago is now back in the fore because you cannot buy parts for vehicles, and it's MOT failure with no lights working because the BCM's gone down. The car's a scrapper potentially,
or you're waiting months till they have them in stock. It's crazy.
The supply is a bit sporadic. You might find it goes on back order, and I think the other thing you sometimes, I don't know about you guys, I've experienced is you place an order for a part and they say it's on back order, and you go into the big clouds of doom start circling, and you're thinking that the thing's going to be on site for months, and then 2 days later it turns up. It's not like it used to be reliable or robust, or you can sort of take a stab at that's going to be not a problem. I think part supply's got really, really ropey, and it's putting garages under a bit of pressure with their clients because the car owner has no idea about part supply. In fact, I was watching something in the news that they found asbestos in the distribution centre at Ford in Daventry this week or last week, and they've shut the place down whilst they get cleaners in. And all your part supply for Ford are now coming direct from Cologne or somewhere in Germany or mainland Europe. So you've now got the Brexit complication of sending stuff from Europe to the UK, and what that's going to do for stock items in dealers and delivery times is just adding to the pressure of.
We're going to be struggling for Ford parts now.
Struggling for Ford parts, And
I was told by the dealer the other week that the same sort of thing happened. Well, the same thing happened, but I still got my part pretty rapidly. So it didn't seem to be an issue for that part.
No. I wonder whether the stock's going to wash out of the network a little bit. So it'll take a few weeks to start to kick in, but where they've got stock on somewhere in the network on the shelf, they're pretty good at overnighting. But once you start getting the channel involved, it normally puts a couple of days on parts. And that's the whole of the UK being supplied direct from Germany. So I think, something to watch out for. Yeah, cool stuff. And David, with you, same thing, dealer tools, as Michael was saying, you'd be thinking having to lean a bit more on OE solutions as well as some of the aftermarket.
Yeah, definitely having to. But then it's learning a whole new tool as well, which is another task. But it's almost getting to the point now where there's no point in plugging an aftermarket tool in.
No.
Because it just can't complete the task at hand, so.
No.
Basically, I think we need them.
I would say it's probably one of those things when you're using a dealer tool, it gives you that bit of confidence that you sort of know that if it's got a blue oval on the front, for instance, in Wes's example, and you've got FDRS in the house, there's not going to be much you're not going to be able to do. Whereas I think when you're using an aftermarket tool, you're sort of rolling the dice a bit, going, I wonder in special functions whether it's got this thing, and if it's got the function, will it actually work? Where dealer tools give you a bit of confidence, but you're right, there is a huge learning curve in you now need a separate laptop, you now have to do this installation and update routine, you now have to learn how the portal works and where you find the info, you also then have to learn how the tool works and where all the functions live, and you have to be lucky enough the day you want to buy a ticket for the payment service to be working that you can get tickets for the tool that you've actually got.
Well, that's if FDRS works as well. You can actually log in. It's a nightmare.
It has been a nightmare.
That's about last week or so I couldn't get in.
What's that? Because at Microsoft, problem.
No, I think the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. Yeah, I don't think it's anything as complicated. It seems to be a bit flaky that we're running some of the dealer tool courses here. We had an instant recently where we couldn't complete some of the things because on the day that we were running the course over a couple of days, and the day we come to do some of the practical, the tool just wouldn't play ball, wouldn't let us log in. We'd updated it. We normally, so on the course, when we run a course, we're uber cautious about that. So we make sure it's up to date. We run a session the day before, and then when we're running the course the following couple of days, we know we're up to date. There's no problem with firmware on the interface or any of that. Or not there's no problem, but there's a likelihood it won't be an issue. And on that day, the Ford tool wouldn't play ball. And we're kind of stuck then. What do you do? Get FDRS out or get the Ukrainian one, what's that called?
Forescan.
Forescan, where they get the Forescan.
It's not bad though.
No, it's good.
It's good on live data.
It is.
Good tool. Really good tool.
Yeah, it is good, but it's not the dealer tool, is it? No, unfortunately. No.
It's one of those things, though, a bit like VCDS, that it's so cheap, you almost might as well have it.
Yeah,
because it's a handful of quid a year to run, and you just might as well have it.
Yeah, it's a really good point there, Rob. The dealer tools used to be, when we started doing we went a few dealer tools, and we went the Autologic route back in the day when they were good and had that blue box, and it was that was a ray of light for independent garages. You could, if you spent your money, you could have dealer tool function in an aftermarket tool with good support and backup, and the dealer tools at that stage were maybe costing 10, 11 or 12 or 13,000 quid, and having 2 or 3 of those was quite difficult. Some had really mad hardware requirements, like you'd have to install a server to be able to do software updates. On BMW was one particular case. You had to have a server installed in your building to be able to take the updates to do software flashes, and it just was bonkers. You couldn't actually meet the obligation of having a server room in most garages. And if you think, well, if BMW want that and Mercedes want that and the Volkswagen want that, how do you do it? So Autologic gave us a ray of light. But obviously the trade knows what happened there. And the dealer tools, I think, partly with the European project, became less of an issue. And, your interface is probably costing you somewhere between 4 and 12 or 1,500 quid. And then your tickets are all kind of pay as you go. Mercedes is the only one that sticks out as being a bit of a different one, where they're kind of thinking about insisting on a hardware package and only really giving you OBD or Euro 6 as they call it. But the dealer tools now, I think you're right, Robert, it's not so much that financially it's not rewarding. It is. I think what makes it a challenge is, okay, for each dealer tool you have to have a laptop. For each dealer tool you have to be au fait with the portals, you have to be au fait with the software updates and firmware updates, and you have to be au fait with using it. And I think it's probably there's a learning bit that's probably difficult. It's not now the money that it takes to get the tools and the hardware in there. It's probably about the implementation into the business. And I don't know, with you guys working with others, you tend to find one person is the person for that tool, because I think there's a natural limit on even the cleverest person. How many dealer tools are you comfortable learning and being able to go back, 3 weeks later, I'm going to just dive in and do a BMW session, and you've been working on Fords for the past 2 weeks and you go, where is the exit button?
Yeah.
And then they moved it in the last software update.
Good point.
The problem is as well is that you're so used to using your generic tool that when you have to get your dealer tool out, you don't go back to your dealer tool again for the next session. You go back to your generic tool again. Yeah. And then you forget everything. It's almost like you've literally just got to stick with it, I think. Yeah, you do. I think there's a few garages I know that through the independent tools out, where they're trying to get the boys to use the OE tools, where there was still an Autel or an AutoFix or another tool, a Snap-on tool in the house. They took the decision to ditch the aftermarket tools, so the guys were not having an easy out. I'm just going to run that function on the aftermarket tool because I know it's quick and easy. They're going through that pain, as you say, Dave, just to learn it and to become and to stay current with it, and that's proven to be quite good. Having the discipline, but I think also if you've got a couple of you working in there, sharing the obligation a bit of, you're going to be the Volkswagen guy and you'll be the BMW guy, or you'll have somebody that can do Ford. I think that's a great way of doing it, making somebody responsible, if you like, or the go-to. And everyone else can kind of use it up to a level, but there's the troubleshooter, the deep shit department.
They'll be up to speed with it, won't they? They can hit the ground running with that tool, can't
Yeah, they can.
Generally, the quickest tool is the tool you know the best.
Yeah.
You know, and that's true of any tool.
Yeah, good point. And you also, in your introduction there, as you said, again, there are a couple of companies, and particularly Garage Vitals you picked on there, who are able to offer a bit of support and back up to the weary technician who's firefighting jobs and parts and clients, you know, that can give you a bit of a helping hand with installation updates and maybe even hop on and do a bit of a remote. That's
what they did with me. Went on to me remote through my laptop because I was struggling with the Isuzu tool, IDSS. I was struggling to connect through pass-through. So I had a Ford job on what I needed to get on FDRS. So I thought, I'm not even going to waste my time. I'm just going to ring up Garage Vitals and get them to sort it, and they were brilliant. Yeah, really helpful. Yeah, I think so. When you look at maybe if you burn an hour dicking about with an interface and a laptop and a software flash, and your bread and butter jobs, your discs and pads are still sat there, and you've not earned a penny, and you've actually got frustrated. Yeah, there is a case. Saved me loads
just
of
an
time.
hour, you say?
Yeah, I was being. Yeah, I guess I've completely underestimated. I definitely wasn't talking about Volkswagen then. So. No, but and I think that's a wise choice of resources, really, for the money that they charge you to do it. You know, you can crack on and be working away and be productive, and they can take care of that for you. So I think, again, there's a couple of those type of services that exist out there, which, you know, are really useful for technicians, because I think it is difficult if you're going to try and do everything yourself.
Yeah, I think I've discovered that really. It's better to try and just give it to the guys that know what they're doing.
And
just concentrate on doing what you're doing, and then figure out the rest of the tool and in your own time, really. It's
especially when you're on your own. If you're one man, you got to sub these little bits out, haven't you?
Yeah, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
Build it into the business model. Build it. I was going to say, talking about, you know, business models and charging, then how are you guys getting on with, because there's an elevated cost of using a dealer tool. Now you've got a ticket. If you're using an aftermarket tool, you kind of swallow the annual subs. You're paying 600, 800, 900 quid a year. You take that on the chin. It's under the cost of doing business now. But with a dealer tool, of course, there's every time you go to plug it to a car, there's a connection, there's a ticket, there's 15. If you're doing a run of the mill, it's, you know, 9 to 15 quid. If you're doing something French, then it's 45 quid. And if you're doing the oval of doom, you're into 75 quid for a session. You know, very difficult for an independent garage to take that on the chin as part of my plug-in or my diag. How are you guys getting on with, you know, factoring that into the diagnostic charging question? When your clients have got a car, then you know it's going to involve that. How do you manage that conversation with an elevated cost of dealer tools and plug it into the server?
I'm just honest with them. I mean, I've only really used the Ford genuine tool so far, which is quite cheap compared to some of them. But I'm just 100% honest. I tell them, I say, look, you've got this, you're going to have an assessment fee, and then if I have to jump onto the OE, however much it costs, I'll tell them how much it costs, and I'll say, look, we're going to put it on bill, and just be totally honest and open with them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how do you find it accepting that? Do your clients sort of get that?
Yeah, they do, a lot of the time, I mean, if they are going to be an awkward customer, they don't really get past the shit filter, you know, which is, you know, my assessment fee, you know, 120 quid, 100 quid. I mean, if they sound like a bit of an arse on the phone in the first place, I might even raise the assessment fee a bit.
You have to deselect them through that method. Do you think your clients then, and a kind of question to the room, you know, as technology inveigles the average Joe's life, that they got a phone that wants an update, they got a telly that wants an update, if they're very flash, they've got a washing machine that needs an update because it connects to the internet, that people are wise to, you know, the internet connection software update sketch, and, you know, migrating that across to their wheels or their mode of transport isn't a tough conversation?
Yeah, sometimes you find that customers don't quite understand then how you can go from a car that's perfectly working to having this fault just purely because the software stopped working. So sometimes it's a difficult conversation with them over that.
Yeah, where it might be a software fix that's curing the issue. But I suppose if you look at a client of yours that's coming to you as an independent garage for service and repair and maintenance, I suppose it's a real value added that you have the ability to do that, to connect to the Ford server or the Volkswagen server and get the software and update their car and hopefully solve the problem. So do you think it's a competitive advantage if you look around garages that are close by you, the fact that you guys are geared up with dealer tooling? Do you think it makes a difference to your attractiveness as a repair venue, or is it like just the clients are just sort of surprised you can do it and are happy? Do you think you're winning work from it, or is it a nice to have?
I think we're winning work mainly from other garages.
Yeah,
I don't think the general public have toss what computer you've got or whether you can do it. They just want the job done.
Yeah.
But yeah, and more trade work really. That's where they're recommending other garages that they know to then send to me for the software update and whatnot. So. Yeah,
that's a really good point, Dave, because the other garage knows his aftermarket tool can't do that function. And Wes again mentioned that AdBlue, AdBlue, and you did as well, Dave, about AdBlue faults. Some of the AdBlue faults you get that trip when the counter's giving you a 50-mile countdown. Some of those and some of those enablement faults have to be cured with a dealer tool. And I think that for me is probably in the last 2 years one of the things that's really flagged dealer tools are a necessary thing would be AdBlue faults.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so that's a really good point. So your fellow tradesmen are shepherding their clients towards you because they know you've got the ability. And so you're kind of winning trade sponsored retail work.
Yeah, I get, because I don't really want trade work.
No. I get because it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Yeah.
Work twice as long for half the money.
Yeah.
So actually saying that, I mean, I don't even have a trade rate anymore.
No.
I charge trade same as retail.
Yeah. Well, you could say it's actually trade should be charged more because they will have had a bash at it. There will be an undoubted trail of mayhem of parts of variable quality, and you may, you're then taking a job on second or third hand with loads of other things that have changed since. And trade jobs are generally more challenging than give me a virgin retail job with somebody that was driving at the time it went wrong, and I can probably tell you that that's going to be much less drama than a trade job that's been around 2 or 3 garages. They've had a poke at it, and I really do support trade, in inverted commas, trade work should be at a premium.
Yeah.
Not at a discount.
We'll put it this way. I charge more per hour than any of the local garages charge. And I charge the local garages what I charge them. And 1 or 2 of them have sort of said, oh, that's more than we charge. So my answer to that is, you didn't fix it.
Yeah, it's a good point, Rob. Yeah, it is a good point. And you've got to admire the cheeks somewhat of a garage that struggled to fix a car, questioning what it's going to cost you to fix it when they plainly couldn't. I think that's a conversation a bit like, do you know what, you're probably not in a good position to start challenging what the value of the work is. And I know when we did a lot of trade work, we had the view that we were quite arrogant. I'm an arrogant person, because essentially those conversations would happen. Well, you've not been able to fix it, have you? So come in here, kind of questioning how much I'm going to charge you to fix it. It's a bit rich, really, isn't it? And not for the fact that I need to make a living, and all the investment in tools and training have to be paid for, and there is a premium in the service I offer because I've got the capability that you haven't, because I've made that investment. So I think I come across the concept of not all labour hours are the same value. So
we're all different in our investment in training, and investment in equipment as well.
It's all different, and this, I think, you can't, when somebody says, how did you come up with your labour rate to a garage? A lot of places will look up and down the road and go, he's charging 70, he's charging 80, so I'm going to be at 75. And you go, I don't want to be an outlier, I don't want to be too low, I don't want to be just, it's Goldilocks pricing, I want to be just right in the middle. And in fact, that's completely flawed. It's, what are you investing in? What have you invested to get to this point? What are you investing in the next 12 months to advance yourself? And are you making a profit in the work that you do? So,
what does it cost you to open the doors in the first place?
Cost of doing business. Absolutely.
If you speak to a lot of garage owners, they actually don't know.
No.
They don't know what it costs them to be there.
No.
So how can they fix a price?
Yeah, exactly right. Or question somebody else's, because you can't compare apples with apples, because we're all a little bit different.
For sure.
Yeah,
I think the usual route, as you say, was to go, I'll go $5 dearer than him down the road there, just because I'm slightly a little bit better.
Or $5 cheaper.
Or $5 cheaper.
And then we're on the race to the bottom, aren't we?
Yeah, it is tricky, to get your pricing right. And I think that, again, we got that conversation kind of kicked off with how do you in charge for it. And I think, whereas you're rolling that in as an additional cost, so you're probably charging the ticket out to them, but there probably ought to be a margin on your ticket. So your ticket ought to be cost plus 30%, because they couldn't buy that ticket if they wanted to, because they haven't got an account, they haven't been through security. Even if they did, they wouldn't know how to do anything with it. So your cost probably needs a bit of elevation as well, because they can, there's a cost of you buying a ticket, and you've cost of finance and all that. So, but yeah, so your premium charge in that service then, over and above what your normal diag would be. Yeah.
So I'd just say to the customer, if we do have to go onto the dealer portal, which is going to cost money, we're going to have to put it on top of the bill. Yeah. Just be totally honest.
Yeah, totally honest.
And if they're not happy with it, well, you'd have to go elsewhere then.
Yes. Yeah, true stuff. And Michael, do you do the same kind of thing?
Yeah, so generally we'll do our assessment, and then from there we'll determine where we need to do some dealer diagnostic work. Right. But can't really have like a fixed price for that, because each manufacturer there could be wildly different prices. Yeah. So we just have to have that conversation after the initial assessment.
Yeah. And I think that it's an interesting conversation, isn't it? If you're driving a different car, so if you've got a French car, your ticket price is going to be 50 quid. If you're driving a 4x4 of a certain brand, your next price is going to be 80 quid on top of the stuff you're doing. And I have no problem with that conversation either, because it's just an on cost, and I don't really care if they're charging 150 quid. It sort of kind of is what it is, and it needs to be paid for. And we're a little bit vulnerable as a trade, because in that case the disparity between Volkswagen at 9 quid and the Land Rover at 75 quid, it's just bonkers, isn't it? I think without getting into the conversation of price fixing, how can there be such a disparity? So 9 quid for Volkswagen, 45 quid for Peugeot Citroën, and then 75 quid for Land Rover for essentially the same stuff, for a ticket and some time and hours worth of technical manuals. I think that, somebody needs to give the head a wobble a little bit and go, how can that be such a vastly different pricing structure?
I think probably for the future it's something that the European Commission needs to look at, whether there can be a maximum ceiling price that the manufacturers can charge, because frankly it is ridiculous that the likes of JLR have gone to the kind of money they have, when plainly the likes of Volkswagen can do it considerably cheaper. It's information they've got out there that they are using themselves anyway. So realistically, they're whatever they sell to us, even if they charged £1 an hour for it, they're making money on that, because it's information they've already got for their dealers anyway. So realistically, it's just blatant profiteering really from certain manufacturers to bump the price up, because it's information that's sitting there. They haven't prepared it for us. No. Realistically, they're only selling it to us because the European Commission says they have to. And so there ought to be a maximum price, even if it was €30 or whatever it happens to be. But a maximum ceiling really ought to come in on that to bring the rein the manufacturers in a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'd agree. There is definitely a case to be made for price gouging, I think, with that particular manufacturer being at that price level. When, if you said like ballparkish, if you pick 12 quid as an average of everyone else, apart from PSA or Stellantis Group and JLR, they are outliers at the mid to high end. And like you say, pound for pound service delivery, the infrastructure, software, some sort of server to run it. We're having to buy the hardware, so that's not an on cost. I'd agree. So here's a question for you then. Been in the trade a long time. Who is shouting for us on that front? Who would you get on your speed dial next time you pay 75 quid for a ridiculous hour on JLR, when a lot of the tool functions are rubbish as well, but I won't say that out loud. Who do we phone to say, come on lads, get a grip, go to Mr. JLR and give him a bit of a nudge and say, oi, what's happening here? Who in your view should be standing up for his independent garages?
It's got to be the IMI as one of the organisations, and perhaps the RMI as well. Need to be shouting out for us.
The 3-letter acronyms.
Well, like a
It can only be an organisation, can't it, really, that can
Well, like a
maybe take
governing
it
body.
further. Yeah.
Yeah.
There ought to be, but who do you call? Who do we phone up next week when we get a Jaguar in and go, look, I'm fed up paying 75 quid. Can you have a word? Do you think they even know? Do you think they know what's going on?
Probably not, because they're not at the coalface.
Who would you talk to? What sort of job role would you be looking at? Phone the IMI up there in Hertfordshire and say, can I speak to the person responsible that's looking after dealer tool, access and parity and fairness?
There is no one,
There is no one, is there?
Well, so are they missing the
is it?
trick? Are they not looking after us properly then for our membership? Do you think that's something that they've missed the ball on a bit?
Definitely. Yeah.
The RMI, the Independent Garage Association, is another one. There's lots of these 3-letter acronym guys, but I genuinely think somebody there should have our interest as a trade at heart, to be able to go and knock on the door, as Rob said, and say to the guys like Jaguar Land Rover, come on lads, this is not fair, or take it to the European Parliament and get involved in all that kind of politicking stuff to bring fairness and equity.
And there is a precedence for this, because if you look at the banks some years ago, they were charging ridiculous fees for missed payments or any transaction fees outside of their normal remit, if you like. And the government turned around to them and said, you will not charge more than £12 for any particular individual charge as such, and put a limit on it, put a limit on what the banks could charge. So there's no reason why a limit, whether it was a UK-based limit or it would have to be a European Commission-based limit. But it's been done before. The banks were reeled in on what they were doing. So there's no reason why the vehicle manufacturers can't be reeled in on this as well.
No, and there's an interesting point, because somebody somewhere, one of those organisations, obviously were shouting for the independent aftermarket for access when that Euro 5 and Euro 6, or the Euro 5, J2534 pass through was essentially in doubt. There were bodies appointed to look after our position there, but do you think they missed a trick then by not including the pricing or price parity?
Quite probably, yeah.
And maybe it exists, but do you know? You're in the trade up to your fingernails in dirt and muck. Why don't we know this? Why don't we know the answer? We're kind of missing a trick, aren't we? Somebody somewhere's not.
Yeah, because they should have got them to not speculate. What's the word I'm looking for? But basically, when they were forced to do all the transparency, it's basically give them a ceiling limit, or ask them what they wanted to charge, or it's got to be fair. It's got to be fair so that we can access it.
Yeah, I think fair in both the monetary value, but I think fairness and parity also, and maybe access. And some of the dealer tools are very much more difficult to buy, access and log into than others. And again, I think that's probably something that slipped through the cracks. It should be, I know there's this, what's the thing about the access?
CERMI access.
CERMI access, CERMI, which is kind of mentioned in passing that we might all have to join some kind of register to be validated as being stand-up citizens to be able to go and do coding and programming.
But that's a kind of a PayPal thing really as well, isn't it? That it's being seen as a way of making it so that you sign up once, and rather than actually having to share all your detail, all your security detail with the vehicle manufacturer, CERMI then, the CERMI system effectively validates you, a bit like PayPal doesn't pass all your security details to that company that you're dealing with, but just pays them on your behalf. Well, CERMI looks like it would be a similar idea to that. So it has some advantages in that respect, because otherwise you'd have to sign up to a dozen different manufacturers, a dozen different companies to get that security access.
As we
do now, in effect. Yeah. And the idea behind CERMI is in some ways relatively sound, that you kind of do that once and then it shares all that detail to the VMs to avoid you having to get security clearance multiple times.
Cool. Has anyone had a problem getting security? Is CERMI a thing that we even want or need? Because I've never needed CERMI. I've got access with all the OEs myself. I follow the routine. I fill the forms in and send them. Is CERMI actually going to deliver some sort of benefit? Or what I see for CERMI as a scheme is there's an access fee. The current sketch is you've got to sign up for a number of years up front and pay that fee for what we've already got. So I stand on the side, like you just said there, Rob, that it would make a bit of sense to have one level of authority and access for everything. But the system's kind of already, CERMI's been outrun. I think they were so slow in getting it running. I think the UK is an option to join. It doesn't have to join because it's not in the EU. And we've already got full access to all the dealers. So I would say, do we need CERMI, or do we need kick CERMI into the long grass a minute and get the boys that are running CERMI to go and have a look at charges and access?
Well, I think you're probably right. I think CERMI probably are the organisation that needs to be regulating, if you want to call it a regulation thing, regulating the costs, the maximum cost that the manufacturers are allowed to charge for their information. The way I see it, the CERMI gives some advantages to somebody, say, who's not currently got any access to dealer tools, is just thinking, okay, I'm going to sign up to this dealer tool. Oh, blimey, now I've got to do this one and this one and this one. And how many hoops have I got to jump through here? Whereas if I only have to just jump through the one hoop of CERMI, and that will then allow me to sign up for them all because I now have a CERMI number that validates my credentials, if you like. It's probably got some advantage.
Tell you
but
what, Rob,
for somebody who
starting to sound like pass-through. CERMI is the documentary equivalent of pass-through. That it's going to be awesome, but when it lands, it's actually a pile of poo. It doesn't properly work. And
I seem to recall the OBD was a bit like that as well, wasn't it? In 2000 as well. But
here's a quiz question for bonus points. Which organisation in the UK is responsible for CERMI for the UK? Does anyone know?
I've got a clue.
Not got a clue. It's the RMI.
RMI,
yeah.
Like that, yeah.
So I think the RMI have got the lead at the minute. So they were first in a long time ago. They're essentially managing some form of scheme, as far as I understand it. So we'll maybe we should phone the RMI up and say, can they include validating access charges before we plough on and join up for CERMI? Can we sort of get the charging and access organised first of all? Because again, I think I don't know whether CERMI, all the dealer tools we got access to currently don't involve CERMI, so I haven't had to register with CERMI to gain access to everything. So I think you're right, Rob. Maybe if you're completely new and are trying to do it, I would ask the room then, in your voyage with dealer tools, was gaining access for security a super difficult step that blocked everything else? So is that the problem, or was it more about getting an interface and maybe getting the laptop installed and getting it running and then learning how to use it? Where was the blocker to you putting dealer tools in your business? Was it security access, or was it something else?
Length of time to get the security access is the problem. An awful lot of the brands take a long while.
I found it really complicated.
What the getting an account set up?
That's why I got Garage Vitals to set up FDRS.
Yeah.
Cool. But you still have to do a DBS check and things like that. If it requires a DBS check, then you've still got to stand.
I've not done
doing a DBS check to get
to get
programming
and stuff,
programming and that sort of stuff. If you want a Gecko,
Gecko
access on Odis and things like that, you can, these days you're going to have to have a DBS check, an enhanced DBS check. Make sure you're not some sort of crook or whatever.
Yeah, I think the Odis one was ridiculous. I think I waited 9 months.
Yeah, I was going to say 8-9 months is not unusual to be waiting. So, you've got to jump on board with it at some point, of course. If you're going to go that route. But the length of time it takes to get that access is, it was just kind of mind-numbing, really.
Here's a question for you then. If you have to join CERMI and it means you having to reapply to your dealer access that you've already got access to, how comfortable are you going to be with that? So they're going to torch your existing access because now we're putting you through CERMI. You have to apply to CERMI and get them to register with them, and then somebody in CERMI has to apply on your behalf to the dealer portals, or if that's the way it works. Does that sound like sense?
I don't think I've got access to any of them, so I'd sign up to them if it's going to help.
Yeah, cool.
The thing is, I think if you're already registered, I would be very much against. If you're already registered, having to register with CERMI to get access again. In other words, your access being cut off and you've got to go through CERMI. I think it should be an optional thing rather than you have to do it. and we're going to switch. Basically, we're going to switch you off tomorrow, and the day after you've got to go through SERMI to get your access back.
So, as experienced people in the trade, do we know what the status is with SERMI? Is it as we suggest, you maintain your access, or does SERMI then mean you delete your account with Volkswagen and then reapply? Because I'm honestly, genuine open question, if we're at the leading edge of all of this stuff and we don't know,
I've never even heard of SERMI.
No, somebody's not doing that.
There you go, yeah.
I think the SERMI publication job probably want a good toe up the hole, because they're not necessarily maybe doing a good job at letting the people in the trade understand what it is, what it stands for, what the process is, how much it costs, what's the benefits, and actually what they're doing.
I don't know whether I'd be happy about having to reapply for everything again now. Yep. However, before having the access, I think if there had been something there where I could have just given, as Rob said before, just one my details to one person, and then they can sort all my access out.
Yeah, simplify the process. That would
slimline
it down.
Golden, absolutely golden.
Cool. Here's what I hear from Europe, because I sort of know. I know more than I'm letting on. I'm asking I'm asking rhetorical questions. SERMI is being used as a big stick. Mm. Right. What do I mean as a big stick? Right. So if you
whipping stick.
Yeah. So you got SERMI access, and through that your SERMI account, you've then got access to 26 different dealer groups, and you've got all your logins set up. If one of them finds you doing a remap or a DPF delete or something, they pull your SERMI access and you lose it for everyone. So because you've only got one point of contact for all of your authentications, if you do something wrong by one of them, you get kicked out from everyone.
I don't want SERMI.
I don't want SERMI. No. And that's
the thing is, one of the key drivers behind that idea is that, we know there's lots of nicked parts out there, and you've got certain manufacturers track stolen parts and prevent stolen parts being programmed to cars. And what they're saying there is, if you get caught doing it on one brand, there's a fair chance you're doing it on other brands as well, in which case you're just going to lose your access to the lot. And it's kind of like a bit like the insurance industry. They've all got together and are working together. So if you've committed fraud with one insurance company, that's shared across the entire insurance industry in the UK, in fact across Europe. And so you will lose. You can't then. If you're banned by one insurance company, you'll get banned by them all. You won't get insurance.
So they're like the police then?
Well,
they're trying to police the whole nicked parts thing, because it's such a big problem, particularly across some parts of Eastern Europe where even some of the government cars have been found to be stolen.
I'll give you and however, where I find, so my view about SERMI is that it's a negative thing for the industry. Convince me otherwise. I feel like that guy sat on Speaker's Corner with a placard. But I think for that reason, so why I agree in principle, if you are up to no good, you didn't ought to have access. But the up to no good can be, that can happen through very, very honest means. So you bought a second-hand part on eBay. You don't know until you try and code or program it whether it's had a stolen marker on it, because you won't know the VIN number off the unit until it plugs to the car. In the Volkswagen case, when you plug it in, it pulls the VIN out of the used part and it tries to match it to the car. It checks to the server, and if there's a stolen marker, you get a strike. It comes up as a FASIT error. You don't know that, and genuinely, as a garage who's doing, potentially trying to keep that car on the road, being eco-friendly, rather than buying a new car, you're keeping the old one going with parts, or you can't get the parts, so the car is essentially no good unless you use a used part. In that case, with the SERMI as the sole entry point, you get a strike through no fault of your own, and you're booted out from everyone. So you can't do any dealer diag for any car going forward. That's a frailty of that scheme, I think. But you can be caught in the crossfire completely innocently. And how do you make, crikey, how do you fancy writing to Mr. SERMI to explain that to him whilst you're suspended from all your accounts?
We had a garage that took 9 months to get their Gecko account back, because they'd fitted a part that they got from one of the breakers. It was off a stolen recovered vehicle, but the manufacturer hadn't removed the marker off of the FASIT system.
It was legitimate salvage.
It was a legitimate salvage part from a vehicle that had been sold onto the salvage company by the insurance company, but it had never had the stolen marker removed from it, from the FASIT list. And so that came up as a strike. They lost their Gecko account, and it took them 9 months of toing and froing, letters going here, there and everywhere. Because they were a Volkswagen specialist, they needed Gecko access. And it took 9 months of legal wrangling with Volkswagen for them to get their Gecko access back. So and of course, under CERMI, they would have lost probably access to all of the manufacturers, or certainly security access would have been lost to all the manufacturers at that point.
Sounds like a headache.
Yeah,
I
it
won't
is.
get
Yeah.
involved in fitting second-hand bits.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
but the problem is, as we've said
we
earlier
have
in
to
the
sometimes,
conversation, that
cheap car,
we
yeah.
are in this situation now where there's a bit of a push, and even the insurance companies are not against second-hand parts,
Here's my
whereas
favourite.
they once were.
Here's my favourite term, right? Insurance companies, they don't use second-hand parts. No, they are green parts.
Green parts.
Green, yeah.
Recycled.
Yes, recycled. Yeah. Recycled. So yeah, by legitimately using green parts, if we use the terminology back the other way, yeah, you could end up being cast asunder.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a big flaw, and that is a legitimate concern. In my contacts across Europe, that is being held over. A lot of garages not doing some functions because you'll lose your CERMI. So in some markets where this is active and some of the manufacturers are doing it, and there's a central body in that territory managing all of the logins and what have you, your CERMI access can be pulled, and the right of reply is very sketchy. And I think you're kind of putting your testicles in the palm of somebody else's hand there a little bit, business-wise, particularly if you should happen to lose it. And I would really like to see some form of reassurance about strikes, or the ability, if you happen to get knocked back, if this scheme was to become more popular, how do you circumnavigate that legitimate?
There needs to be a sort of a good recourse and right of appeal, if you like, there, because plainly, if you're a wrongman, you shouldn't be allowed security access. But if you've just made or you run into that problem, let's say, where you've purchased a part from a vehicle being broken and it hasn't been deregistered as stolen or whatever, then you shouldn't get in trouble for it. There should be a right of reply.
Well,
I think if you can prove the whole chain of events of where you bought it from, etc., then they shouldn't be able to just to ban you like that and
a couple of strikes,
and knock you
not,
off.
not the first time, and that's
Yeah. Or just get sent a warning. This has been highlighted. This was come up as a stolen market. You're under investigation. It's like, right, okay, well, here's all my information where I got it from.
And that's what happened in this case. The garage went back to the breaker, and that conversation happened, but it still took a long time, even though the chain of events was very well documented and it was all above board and legal, and they're a nationally recognised breaker. That no-fault case cost that garage 9 months of access. And you essentially froze out the code. So I would think with CERMI, I kind of got to wondering: are they trying to solve a problem that doesn't really exist? How many hooky garages are managing to get onto? If I'm a hooky garage, I've got 101 other ways round of wiping a VIN number out of a part and applying it to a car. So I could nefariously use Chinese cloning tools to do nefarious activity that don't involve going anywhere near the dealer server. I can code keys. I can swap a unit if I wanted to. Are they policing something that doesn't need policing? Because if you're legitimate and it happens to happen, you'll get caught anyway because of the processes. So all of the people that are up to no good are not using that technique.
Yeah, they're probably trying to police the unpoliceable. In actual fact, is really what it is. In as much as those that are still doing it in a hooky way are going to carry on doing it in a hooky way, no matter what we do.
But they're not using CERMI. They're not using a dealer tool. They're not using that channel.
They're going under the radar.
I'm using I'm using an e-promming tool. I'm not even going near the server. So the method for catching the nefarious activity is focused on the wrong thing. So you ought to police e-promming tools and dodgy code calculators and all this sort of kind of stuff. That's where all the dark arts are happening. It's not happening through Joe's garage, who's got 8 different accesses to 8 different dealer tools that's doing coding and programming, flashing, and a genuine stand-up business. The hooky guys are using offline and e-promming tools to do this stuff, cloning and wiping stuff out. So
they're hacking it properly.
They're hacking it, proper hacking it, and that's why I think CERMI's aimed at completely the wrong. This is the wrong tool. I'm using a screwdriver to drive nails in there. It's just not the right thing in the right way at the right time.
Could well be right. Yeah.
I don't know. Part of the conversations that that we're having here are to try and bring this up, because I think think I'm in fear that that's likely just to roll on, and it will land on our mat as being a fait accompli, and we'll be going, what's all this SERMI stuff, and realising too late.
So we don't want to be signing up to it.
It's got challenges that I don't think of. I can't say don't sign up to it, but I don't know that the conversations have gone on with the trade, with everyone that's involved with this, to agree or disagree. It happens at a high level, like most of this stuff. Some clever dick in a suit somewhere has decided and agreed to this happening, and they haven't consulted you or me. No, we haven't heard about it. We haven't had an input. We haven't really gone into the detail. And we haven't had a chance maybe to put the case that we've just described there and ask them, well, what's the plan then? What's the plan B? If we're going to do this, how do we circumnavigate this potentially threatening thing? But no, really interesting. Yeah, an interesting point. So I'm still sitting on the fence there with splinters in my backside.
I think that one's going to run and run, to be honest with you. And
I think I've got a different view of it now.
I don't think there's even a definitive answer as to whether the UK is going to sign up for it as yet. That's the crazy thing. It's there and thereabouts, but I'm not aware that the UK has even implemented it or got a date for implementation.
No, it's an option. If you look on the SERBI website, the UK is excluded, and it's a voluntary scheme in the UK because we're not part of the the economic union. So we don't have to do it, which is again another reason why as a default we probably shouldn't. But even if it's a good idea, I think the conversations about what happens in the scenarios we just talked about ought to be laid out for everyone to understand before we agree as a trade to do it. Because I feel we're being pushed into that. I'll be honest. We're being pushed. It's happening. We're being told it's right for us, and I don't think we're being told quite, whether it is or isn't right for us. I think there are implications there. So I get the principle, but I don't understand that the implementation of it's going to do us any favours.
I think it's just another body that's going to be involved in a situation like the last one. It's who's in control of that, or who can make the decisions. Is it going to be SERMI, or is it going to be Volkswagen?
Yeah.
Who? There's just too many people involved there already.
Another layer. Yeah, another layer of grown-ups telling us what to do. Yeah, cool stuff. Yeah, no, interesting, isn't it? Yeah, that is an interesting one. Okay, so let's have a little think then. We're talking about diagnostic tools. So I want to know about your, maybe we'll go big diagnostic with a big D or diagnostic with a small d. Tell me the most awesome thing you've put your hands on in the last 12 months. Little tool, little thing, something that saves you hours. It's a one of these or it's a one of that. What would you, if your workshop burnt down, God forbid, the first thing you're going to rebuy to rebuild the business? What tools have you come across recently that are pretty awesome that you're thinking, oh my God, how did I ever manage without that?
Well, since coming on the Tech Topics course here, realising how good the Bosch KTS is.
Yeah.
So I've just got a hold of one of them. Seems quite a good integrated system.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a really good to hear because it is a really good system, and we rave about it. Rob's a really big fan. I've been a fan for 5 or 6 or 7 years at least. I saw the light, and the detail and info that's in there is amazing. Yeah, it is amazing, and I think that in allied to some of the really good stuff you get with your subscription with the dealer tool as an aftermarket tool, there's so much in there. There's a but though, isn't there? The but. It's been designed by Germans.
It's German.
The interface is very, very, very difficult, isn't it? I don't find it now, but I get how a lot of people, even guys that have got the tool, and I know, Rob, you'll jump in here, Rob, people who come on a course with that tool, what are some of the comments that you hear about the KTS?
Can mine do that? Has mine got that on it? I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And
it
amazes me. Yeah, it amazes me that some guys have had this tool for some years, and I don't just mean with the new user interface that's arrived this year, but it's one of those tools that has got loads and loads of stuff in it, and most people never find big chunks of it, and they can be using the tool for years. And they come on a training course and they're literally saying to me, oh, has mine got that on there? I've never seen that on mine. Well, mine do that, and you're just saying, yeah, well, you just go through this, and you show them how to get to. I don't know how to all that information on it, and they're paying. Let's face it, it ain't cheap.
No.
If you're buying the complete package, what did we discuss earlier on the days? Well, it's £1,500 a year or so for the full package. So it's not an inconsiderable amount of money to pay out each year, and the interface is a couple of grand as well. So you've paid out all this money. So the way I see it is, you really want to be getting the best you possibly can out of it, and it is a tool that's got a lot of stuff on it. Not everything, of course. It's not the silver bullet. It hasn't got everything on it, but what it has got is really, really good. And an awful lot of people are really just using it as just another scan tool. And as just another scan tool, it is, I won't say mediocre, it's above mediocre, but it is just another scan tool. But it's the tech information that's behind it that will help you go and find the problems. It's got an awful lot of tech info that you don't even find on the dealer tools, about going and making measurements and what those current readings should be, what those voltages should be, and that kind of thing, that you sometimes don't even find in the dealer technical information. And once they realise it's got all that stuff in it, they're just like absolutely all over it, and they realise how much more they can get out of that tool.
Rob,
but they need the training on it. That's the thing.
Yeah, absolutely need a training. So a question in terms of, I put my software developer hat on, which is one of my full-time, part-time jobs. It as an application, it seems to be like it's maybe 2 or 3 applications over time that have been merged together. Because, for instance, accessing some of the test and measurement, I go to the scan, I connect to the ECU, I do a global scan, I pull the codes up, I enter maybe a line of data, and there's a way of getting from data to the information source then, which gives me parametrics. So what should I be expecting, min and max? But it's not sometimes a click of a button. I click the hyperlink and it drops me into a bit of software, and I've got to make another selection. Is it made up of several other applications that have been sort of brought together? Because I know the last update seems to be, I would use the term mellifluous in terms of it's kind of flowing much better now. But is there in its history of development, was it multiple applications?
Yeah,
do you know?
yeah, it was. If you take it back to its nth degree, it was effectively 2 separate software packages at one time, because you had control unit diagnosis, which was the diagnostic bit, the bit that talked to the car. And then you had ESI-tronic, the electronic service information, which when it first appeared was actually on a separate computer, because it was the diagnostic computer, the KTS 300 and then the 500, was not actually powerful enough and didn't have enough storage capacity to actually have everything on it. So you ran that, you could run that on a separate computer. And they have merged those 2 packages together more and more through the years. But it's still kind of sits there in the background that it is a little bit separate. Hence, you've got the separate tabs for the diagnostics and the technical information. They're kind of under different tabs. And they kind of, although it's merged together, it's kind of still running a little bit separate in the background there.
Yeah, I think that's what you get the feeling that it's maybe once you get to use, and I'm not saying I love it. I know the function buttons and the F12 to get here and 2 tabs on and looking at the page count and all that kind of stuff. I've been trained myself to use it with help from you. I've really got to grips with it. But yeah, I always got that feeling. So, Wes, are you a KTS fan?
Yeah.
An ESI fan?
Yeah, I love it. I think it's great, and I've learnt loads of tips off Rob since I've been down here with you, and I could do with learning a few more.
Yeah.
Nothing kind of falls to hand really with it. It's got a user interface that's still a little clunky, and unless you know that information is there and where to go and find it, it doesn't just fall in your lap like some applications do, some other information systems out there. But it has got so much stuff, it's worth going and finding it and understanding it and seeing where it is. And it's got some foibles and it's got some funny things about it, and it doesn't always find the VIN number, and sometimes you've actually got to put the VIN number in yourself. But sometimes it's worth the effort just because it's got the information that you need. That, like I say, there's some test plan information in there that you just don't find anywhere else, even in the dealer tool. And you'll be scrabbling around, and there is no doubting, because I know my way around that tool like the back of my hand, I can use that tool to help me fix cars that other garages aren't fixing, even if they've got ESI, because they don't go and find the information. They don't use the test plans and so on in there that I find in there and use. And as I say, I'm finding faults and fixing faults on cars that other garages aren't because of the tool.
Yeah,
there is no doubt.
Yeah. Wes, what about you? Top tools then? So if God forsake you had to replace everything you had, what would be the first thing on Wes's shopping list as the go-to? Would it be your injector type?
Injector tester. I'd probably definitely save that, because injectors come in like £15 each.
Yeah.
And it's cash.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great.
Yeah, it's a money-making machine, is it? It's like a cash point in your... Yeah.
It's testing, pass or fail.
Yeah.
I don't even repair them anymore, because they're just a headache. So if they fail, I'll get the part number, I'll ring Merlin up or my supplier, get them a price, put a bit of a markup on it, and then... offer it to a customer, and then if they don't want it, well, that's not a problem. I've made money on testing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great little tool. It's probably my best tool.
Is it? Yeah, that's a big part of the stuff you do day in, day out, is the injector testing. Yeah.
Yeah, people just come in and drop them off, and it's great.
Yeah.
Which machine you got?
It's a D-Tech.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't measure the flow. It's I measure the pressure drop.
Right.
Oh yeah.
At 750 bar.
Oh, nice.
And you can see the reaction time and how long the injector's open for.
Yeah.
It measures that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, it's a great tool.
No, ideal.
Good stuff.
Dave, over to you. What would be your top tool if you had to replace everything? What would be first on the list?
I don't know really. Probably my scope. I think that's an easy get out. I don't know, but I'd really like my heat inductor, if you want to class that as a tool.
Yeah, absolutely, all tools. Yeah, heat inductor.
I just think it's brilliant. Absolutely amazing.
They're fantastic.
It's got me out of so many scrapes. That
I want to get one of them.
When you think back to the old day of oxyacetylene and heating this thing up, burning rubber boots and all sorts of stuff, the inductors are really awesome. Yeah. Do you have a brand in mind, Dave? Have you got a particular one?
GIS.
Oh yeah,
GYS,
2 wires. Good stuff. We've got their chargers here. Yeah, French.
Yeah. So it's probably along with their battery maintainer as well. Yeah. Battery support unit. I think I use that every single day now.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be my next purchase. The heat inductor.
Is it? Yeah.
Definite.
They are phenomenal.
For safety.
We changed some years ago because the insurance company offered us I say a discount. It wasn't. It was a reduction in increase, if you like. It wasn't a discount really. But if we did away with gases, not store any flammable gases, flames, got rid of oxyacetylene and went with an inductor, and it's a good bit of kit in it. The thing is, especially if you're doing suspension and so on, you're not getting all the rubbery bits so hot, because that was always the problem, wasn't it? You end up burning rubber and the stench that you get from that, and the smoke alarm going off and all the rest of it. Then
I think it was after I realised, because where we used to get from BOC, we had to rent the bottles. I think I'd rented for about 3 years, and it cost me about £600, and I'd used it once.
It's not cheap, is it?
It's stupid.
That's where
this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
I need to get one of them. Heat inductors, definitely.
I think it's a bit like when man first saw fire. The first time you see the inductor, it makes the lights flicker. You press the button and it's all doing its thing, and then all of a sudden, the thing you're near to is glowing. You go, oh my god, how cool is that?
And it's so concentrated as well. That's the thing, isn't it? You can focus that heat, or it isn't heat. It's heating up the item. It's just so focused, and that thing's glowing cherry red, and you just think, wow, that's a fantastic thing. Yeah, of course it can't do everything that a flame can do, but it can do most of it, and much more safely without that risk of burning your garage down.
I'm going to give them a strapline now. It's pretty flaming good without the flames. Inductor, that's pretty good. Rob, have you got any top tools?
I bought another FLIR imager, but this time one that I use on a tablet.
Oh, nice.
The old thermal imaging camera. And that's one of those tools, a little bit like a Smoke Pro or anything like that, that the more you use it, the more you can find to use it for. And everything from, checking heated seats, heated rear windows, front windscreens, that kind of stuff, the obvious stuff, but right the way through to finding your greenies in the wires, because the greenie in the wire may not actually be creating heat you can feel, but you put the thermal imaging run it along the wire, and you can soon see where the greenie is, because it's glowing up hotter than the rest of the wire.
Yeah.
So it's one of those tools that you can just use in so many different areas for so many different things. Yeah, really cool. Yeah, really cool.
I think you have to force yourself to use it until you realise how good it is at finding stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
really
I think you're
useful
right.
tool.
Yeah. But as I say, it's one of those that the more you use it for, the more things you find you can use it for.
It's one of those you kind of got to remember you've got. It's a tool in your arsenal that you're going, I want to see, so parasitic current drain overnight's one of the really peachy ones, isn't it? Where something will be ambiently elevated in terms of temperature that you can scan the vehicle and go, oh, look, the radio's on, or, the glove box area is hot or something, or there's a fuse or a relay. I think, though, in some circumstances, it's almost unbeatable, isn't it, for the quick dive? But you've got to kind of remember you've got it.
I have got one, but I hardly ever use it.
This is it.
The thing I found compared to the little handheld one.
That's what I was just saying. Maybe it ought to be your September resolution.
Yeah.
Big post-it note on the toilet door saying thermal imaging, but not for that.
Yeah. Might have to put it on top of my till box, leave it there. So.
What I found going up from the one that's the handheld one with the relatively small screen, going to the one that you can put onto your tablet, gives you a nice sort of 10-inch screen or whatever. Resolution doesn't get any better really, but it's just bigger and you can just see more of it using it with the tablet then, and it works really well, and it's just is it a tool I couldn't do without? Well, I could probably do without it, but out of the tools I've upgraded or changed it in the last year or so, it's the one that I've found just really, really useful now.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Probably Pico as well. Yeah.
Well, I think it goes without saying. I think that the Pico scope is so integral in what we do at the kind of level we're at with the diagnostics that it's as important as your 10mm spanner. Frankly. That one. Yeah,
it would be high up on the list. I'd probably go for my, not quite before Pico, but I'd probably go for my meter test lead back probe combo. That would probably be the first thing I'd run out to get, with a lot of the stuff that I get involved in looking at it, still finding basic electrical faults, loading wires, and that's that type of work that other people sail by. I think that's one of the most underrated and not really that sexy, but one I use a heap of times. I think that and the Pico, I probably
back to basics really.
Back to basics. That and the Pico, the test light, the
test light.
Yeah, the loaded test or the selection of test lights, I would say. But that basic circuit testing and the Pico scope, I probably would get me going again in the case of a disaster recovery, and we stack back up on the dealer tools probably in that order. Yeah, no, interesting. No, good stuff. Here's a question for you then. If we were just talking about tools, if somebody was starting off, or they're in a diag, they're in a mechanical role and they like a bit of diag, what kind of advice would you give to somebody? You guys are all on a journey that have, you've made that trek across, and you're sort of at the other side, you're way through your diagnostic tech program, your techniques are pretty hot, you're doing sort of in-depth fault finding. If you could give the former you advice maybe 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, somebody's starting off now where you were, what words of wisdom, what shortcuts, what pain barrier that you've been through could you help somebody else avoid? What sort of advice would you float?
Training.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Definitely training. And Pico, get into Pico.
Yeah.
I mean, I bought a Pico years ago, and it was just sat there for, I bought one in about 2013, but I didn't start using it until probably 2017, 18. So get into Pico.
Get into the Pico. I heard a thing the other day. I was listening to a podcast, and they came up with this acronym of GAS, and they're saying this GAS is a problem with people that are looking to improve skill sets in all sorts of areas. And I think this was to do, I forget in relation to something, but it involved buying a lot of specialist equipment. And GAS was gear acquisition syndrome. So I'm buying a thing because it's going to make me better, and they didn't either go on the training or they didn't implement it in the daily activity, and they were piling up this stuff which they thought was making them better. I think it was photography or one of those things. So the acquisition syndrome was, I'm buying all this stuff but never using it, and I'm hoping and dreaming that one day I'll get the job where I'm into me eyeballs in this horrid job, and I'll just, not having used the Pico for the last year and a half, I get it out and it solves the job. Where so it was an interesting
all the gear,
one.
no idea.
All the gear,
you need to know how to use it, don't you?
You have to use it, and going back in a way to Rob's discussion about the KTS, the number of people that have got an option to have training. I mean, it's more difficult now, but years ago with equipment, there was a training course, and the people that sort of swerved or didn't bother going on the course, and then wondered why, the equipment doesn't deliver its benefits. And it's something that we do with the Pico stuff. We sell Pico, but we sell it at the same price Pico sell it, but we bundle training for free. We go, the use of that tool will come only from training. So if you want to buy it cheap from a factor, go for it, but get your training. So the money you save, put it into training, or just buy it and have the training for free, whatever. But don't forgo the training, because like you say, you buy this gear and you think it's going to help you, and you put it to one side ready for the big day where you're going to hand-to-hand combat, and you go, well, I don't know how to switch the thing on, I don't know how to get the thing fired up, and what on earth are all these leads for? Yeah.
I found it hard work at first, just setting it up. I found it just time consuming, and because I was working out at the back of a van, I'd always have to put it away properly. It's like now, because I've got a little workshop, I can leave it set up, which is a little bit easier. Yeah. But Pico.
I think anybody who's buying any piece of equipment, and it doesn't matter what the equipment is, it could any form of garage equipment, pick a budget, buy the bit of kit, but budget in the training as well, and not just for one person. No. You want to get several people trained on that bit of kit, because there's no point having a bit of kit that only one person can really use effectively, because once they're on holiday or they leave or they're off sick or whatever, that bit of equipment's a spare part again, so you need to factor in and budget in a training, worthwhile training budget for that product, and make sure that everybody can use it to the best of their ability, to be honest with you.
Cool stuff. So where's your advice is if you're going to embark upon the journey, factor in kind of in your development plan, tools, equipment, training to lift your knowledge as you go along.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
just
cool.
I think also, as well as communities, getting involved with communities like Simply Diag
networks,
networks,
100%.
Learn so much from them.
Even the small setups that we do within each of the Tech groups and Master Tech groups, we find the banter and the advice and help going on in those WhatsApp groups is absolutely brilliant. Because it's sharing that information. Because as we talked about before, we're all kind of in the same boat. Really, we're not rivals. We're in the same boat, and we need to work together to make the job work for us all. Realistically.
But your networks are true. Simply Diag, and then Auto Inform when that was going. Again, another group of invested techs. So I think groups of invested techs are great to help you on your journey, aren't they? And maybe when you're a bit stuck, you can fire a question in, or you can help somebody else that's you've been in the other side of that. You're under the shadow of some horrendous job, and somebody throws you a link or a lead that can help. So I think power networks is immense, and it is part of coming on courses. You get to meet the same sort of similar people, and being in the Simply Diag network again with the forums and the groups again is you're on the same wavelength with other people that are in the same boat that are helping out. So I'd agree.
Plus you get tool benefits, like discounts on these things. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah, there are other benefits. Yeah, no, it's a good point, Dave.
Michael, even events as well. Sorry, the same sort of thing. Events, meeting the same people at the same events. Yeah, it's just all about networking.
It's inspiring, isn't it? It's inspiring you to be, to be, to keep moving forward and be better than you were yesterday, sort of thing. I find,
sharing the knowledge. Yeah, I know there's a group. Is it a couple of weeks? Is it next week?
The blend.
The blend's at the end of blend's at the end of September. Then there's a get together up at Mark Shipman's place.
Mark's doing that.
That's in a week or two. Is that next? Is this weekend? I can't remember. Don't know where we are.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Don't know. But so those events like the blend, and to a lesser extent Top Tech and competitions. I know, Michael, you've been involved with that. The competition again has with the magazines have their own kind of networks that go on, and you're meeting the same people in competitions, finals, semi-finals, and awards evenings and stuff. So I think getting out there and meeting with other like-mindeds, you open up a contact list, and you put names to faces. The internet's very faceless, isn't it, where you see names, but these events you get to meet somebody. You're be your big Dave from the forum then. Help me out on a job, and all of that kind of stuff really is quite positive, isn't it? Yeah, so good point, Dave. The events are really awesome. Yeah, if you're not going to events and you're in the trade, you need to get yourself to events. If that's a trade show, if that's a garage equipment show, if that's a get together from a group of techs, or if that's the blend or whichever, you need to get there, because there is so much stuff. And even I think often tea breaks and lunch breaks and a few beers afterwards is probably the power, as well as the presentations and the people you meet up on the stage. I think rubbing shoulders and talking, chatting shop, and chatting shit with people again is invaluable. Yeah. Michael, what do you reckon? What advice would you give the young Michael then?
Don't take things for granted. Check technical information more, or ask for help from people. We're finding more and more things. Some of the simple jobs that even, say for example, let's say a 2019 Vauxhall Astra or Insignia, they've got electro-hydraulic braking systems. So if you've not put them into service mode, you'll damage the ABS pump. So need to be keep up to date on the technology.
Yeah.
Don't take things for granted. Yeah.
No, don't assume that it is tomorrow like it was yesterday. Yeah, because things do change. And we started off with, didn't we, cranking over the transit to bleed it. How the old techniques and maybe old knowledge of how systems work isn't actually the same way. So reading the service info, and I think that it's a really good point, because when you're gung-ho and flat out at running a diagnostic job, it's very easy to overlook, if you don't have a pretty robust process, to overlook service information and the research bit. You want to fly into it with your tool and get your codes out and then build your diagnostic plan and scanning for data and checking for updates, and you're boshing away. It's very easy to miss sometimes some of the... You need to go a bit slower to go quicker. I think that's the advice. For me, I see quite a lot of guys who are sort of smashing it but are still getting into a bit of trouble, is to slow it down a bit. Charge a bit more, give yourself a bit more time, be a bit more methodical and logical, like you say, referring to service manuals, seeing how the system works. Because if you don't know that, really, if you don't understand the fundamental structure of it or how it's operating, you can assume it works one way, and an hour or two later you find out the reading you're getting wonky measurements is because you're measuring an AC excited sensor, and the one you've got is a Hall effect, or vice versa. You can rush and go and get worse. So I think giving yourself a bit of time. Yeah, no, that's nifty stuff. Go on, Dave.
I was going to say another thing that I was going to say about what I'd probably tell myself is, don't be afraid to say no.
Yeah.
Don't try and think you can fix everything. And I think that goes mechanical as well, not just diag work, but it's just don't try and fix everything. You can't fix everything.
No. Don't be some of the hero jobs. Yeah, some of the hero jobs that you like to cut your teeth on, but being afraid to say no. I think, again, sometimes thinking as much about the client as you are about the car. So is that person reasonable? Never mind, I could probably solve your car problems, but you've got something weird going on. You need help. It's beyond what I can do as a garage. You could deselect a car because the client's maybe, not giving you good vibes. So don't be afraid to say no is another really good one. Yeah, I think you can get. I think you all know. We all know, don't we? When we've taken a job on in a weak moment, and it's screaming no, 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 and 4 days later, 4 hours later, you go, oh God, I should have listened to the spider senses. They were tingling for a reason. Yeah, not being afraid to say no, and I think some of that's about having a good idea of what you're trying to aim for in a business. So is that the type of job that we want to do? Is that the kind of customer that we're after? Is that the sort of earning potential? Have I got the capabilities in tooling? Have I got the knowledge to do it? There's a lot of stuff that goes on that I think, when you're smaller, when the phone goes and you don't know who's going to be on the end of it, you can get caught on the hop if you don't have a good idea of what it is that you do. Yeah. I sort of fix all this stuff, and you can get sucked into stuff you shouldn't. So my advice would be to have a firmer idea of what it is you're trying to achieve in your business. So if you're doing Diag and you're good on these brands, kind of focus on that. Don't try and do everything.
I had that this week actually. I had my work colleague, he booked in a Honda Civic, and afterwards I was like, what have you booked that for? We don't do Honda. And it got to the point where I was dying it, and it was like, right, I don't know where to go now. Nope. No. This ain't my brand. No. I mean, luckily enough, I could phone a few people through networking and spoke to them and got a few ideas what it could be, but I knew that I couldn't complete the job because I didn't have the resources to do it. Yeah. So I just laid that all out to the customer. Said, I think it's this. We need to go further, but I still don't know if I can complete the job. No. I said, take it to a specialist, or I'd advise you to take it to the dealer.
Yeah. Stay. I think you sometimes term that staying as in lane, but having a clear idea of the stuff you don't do probably is more than the stuff you do. Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah.
What don't we do, and being quite firm on that. Yeah. It's tricky. It's a tricky one, but I think that.
I think you're right about not taking on, stuff that either is outside of your normal sort of remit, if you like, or, as you say, trying to be the hero. Yeah. And I think probably trying to find as much out about the job before you even actually book it in is a really useful thing. One thing we implemented earlier on in the year was a very relatively long web page that we added to our website that is effectively like a triage form. We ask every customer to fill in that form. We actually give them the link to fill in that form. And we don't even actually book them in. They're not booked in at this point, but they have no appointment with us. And we are perfectly at liberty at that point to just say, no, we don't want to do that job. We have quite an extensive form, online form that they fill in. We get that, arrives with us as a kind of a feedback form. And we can do quite a bit of triage from that will maybe understand the problem a little bit. And maybe understand a little bit about them. And it even asks them whether the vehicle's been elsewhere. And even ask them to upload invoices from other garages if they've been elsewhere.
Good idea.
Because that then gives us an idea of who's been messing about with this thing beforehand and what else has it had done to it. And that helps us to make a bit of a judgment as to whether we even want to get involved with it. Yeah. Is that a job that has just been round the houses so many times? And is the car the problem? Is the customer the problem? Or are the garages the problem? Yeah. And is this something we even want to get involved with? And we're then at the point where we may just go back to the customer and say, "I'm sorry, but we don't want to deal with that issue. That's not something we want to get involved with." But the good thing is, it actually gives us a much more informed decision on how long it's likely to take us to do the initial assessment. So again, we can go back to the customer perhaps with a better idea of what it's going to cost them, at least for the initial assessment, rather than just saying, oh, it's this much. We might be able to say, well, looking at the issues you got there, we might want to allocate more time, so it's going to cost this. But it also helps us with our time allocation in the workshop as well. Yeah. In other words, rather than trying to fit 3 jobs like that in a day, we might only want to put 2 in that like that in a day, because we can see this is going to be a bit of a headache. Yeah. So it actually helps with quite a bit of planning about whether we even want to take the job. So at that point in time, when they fill in their form, they haven't even got an appointment with us. We'll then ring them or email them with a date and time at that point. Yeah, if they want to take the job on.
That sounds like your shit filter.
It is. Yeah, it is exactly. Yeah. It's the way we're going about. And to be honest with you, the key thing it's done is it's taken the amount of time we spend on the phone talking to the customer and trying to find out about what's going on. It's taken a lot of that away.
It's a pre-therapy form then, Rob.
Kind of, yeah. and the point of it is that, you think how much time you can be spending, or a service receptionist or anybody in your business might be spending on the phone to a customer, getting information for them. And that might be 10 or 15 minutes, but you multiply that by all your customers. If you can get them to fill that form in online, you're saving yourself a massive amount of time in the long run. Yep. Over a year, that could be days of time, not just hours.
Yeah, I've done the same thing, but for DPF work. Nice. Got an online form that they can fill in, but I've never actually implemented it into just doing it into general diagnostic work anyway, which I think I will do.
Yeah, the form actually, it's got lots of pre-filled things in that they just pick the tick boxes, and then there's other bits that we require them to fill in sort of freehand that gives us a bit more detail on what the problem actually is and what's been going on.
Look out, that's a feature of the new diagnostic assistance software, where we've gone to a case-based system, and the vehicle make and models looked up by VIN number, and you get an option to send a QR code to a form which is attached to the case, and the client fills it in, and then it populates that as on the case before you start looking at it. So again, we've adopted that as a part of the that process of pre-qualifying, because as Rob said, it makes such a
questionnaire
difference.
For the customer.
Yeah. So it's part of this red amber green client, red amber green car. You're kind of weighing stuff up before you commit to getting deep into it. As Rob said, it does save a lot of time, especially in a bigger garage, even where your front of house is doing the receptional part, where they maybe aren't so technical and they filter out some of what the client says, and then when it gets to the workshop, it's maybe put through, customer filter, then it's a front of house filter, and then the technician gets a view of the real world, and they may be going off in the wrong direction. So the form stops any of that filter process, and everyone knows where they're starting. So the client fills the form in and the front of house passes it on unadjusted, and the technician sees then from the client's point of view what's happened, and he's getting a better picture. So yeah, that's the idea. I'm a great supporter of that. We had a form back in the day, a manual form that we got the clients to fill out when they rocked up. Yeah, so no, I think it's an awesome idea. It's a really good point, Rob. Yeah, really good point. Yeah. So yeah, staying in the lane, not being afraid to say no, and pre-assessing the assessment even, because as you said, Rob, it's difficult to judge whether you need an hour or 10 hours. And if you can scope the job out and then lay it onto the customer, you're going to have to provision 500 quid to get stuck into this. Well, that's 1,000 quid before you're starting, because it's got a real long tail on it. And actually we haven't got the scope. We haven't got enough free time to invest in a job like that. So it's one we would decline. I think the clients appreciate that in the outset, that they're not believing you're going to have a look at it, or you have a look at it and then say you can't do it. It can help qualify the client, really, whether it's right for you or whether it's something you can do. Sometimes
it could be quicker to just give it a quick 10 minutes, a quick look over, and it could save you so much time and pain.
And this is doing so. Yeah, that remote method of doing that quick look over is really what that form is delivering there, Rob. It's spot on. So almost a final question about future. So we've talked a good bit about, diags and tools and testing and SERMI and what you'd replace and how you're sort of getting on and your journeys. Thinking about Futurescape then, so you guys are in a unique position. I suppose you're driving yourself forward and improving, you're moving your businesses on, you're getting stuck into the leading edge of stuff. What are you expecting out of the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years? What do you think? How is it going to change? What are the challenges? Thinking about electrification, alternatively fueled vehicles, the demise of diesel, the rise of autonomous cars. What's on your radars? What are you looking forward to, maybe, and what are you freaking out about a little bit on Futurescape?
I'm looking forward to more training, just keeping up to date with stuff, and just carry on with training. Yeah, cool. What about car tech? Anything that freaks you out, Wes?
Sure.
Robot cars? Do you like that? Pretty much everything freaks me out about these new cars.
Well, the wide range of things that's going to be available there, then trying to keep up with the tooling to cover each set of technology.
Yeah, it's a big. I think you make a good point there, Michael. If you look at particularly ADAS, in fact, Rob was running an ADAS course earlier in the week, and when you look at the investment that's required for, we're let's imagine, what would you say, 2014 it became mainstream for ADAS vehicles. 2015 it all started happening, radars and cameras. So we're 9 years into that journey, and if you want to do a competent job of calibrating the ADAS stuff, you're into, let's say 10 if you're doing it on a budget, let's say 25 if you're going in big, plus a workshop space that's capable of doing it, the right lighting, the right sort of
geometry,
plus the geometry system and something to check it out. You're probably to a trip where you could be at 50 grand, couldn't you?
You could throw 40, 50 grand at it quite easily.
To get there,
and that's not including a ramp to put it on.
No. So that's a big trip to the tool shed. Is that on your guys' radar to get involved with that stuff? Electric cars, maybe, alternate fuel. What happens if the diesels go? How are you setting up? What's your plan? Or when will you know the time is right to do something? What are you doing to sort of just survey or keep abreast? Or
I need to maybe think about specialising in maybe one make, or maybe get tooled up for one certain job. I mean, I've been tooled up to do diesel job.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the problem we're up against with that one really is the fact that if you look at the figures of sales today compared to 10 years ago,
this is what's
almost
worrying.
exactly the same percentage that were sold as diesels 10 years ago are now electrified vehicles. So what we're really looking at there is how quickly those diesels are going to drop off the road. And of course, the newer diesels are going to drop off of the road quicker than older diesels did, because they've got so many emission control systems on them that go wrong and are so damn expensive to fix that those cars are going to be written off, probably because of AdBlue and DPF problems, fairly relatively early in their lives. So those things are, we stand a real good chance that in the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to have an awful lot of people standing around at their garages going, where the bloody hell did all the diesels go? And now we've got these newfangled EV things. And whilst it's not all EV, it's going to be, there's a lot of hybrid, but I'm talking electrified vehicles almost completely are replacing the diesel sales that we had 10 years ago.
Do you know, somebody posted a thing about a knock sensor price on a Toyota, 2,200 quid for a knock sensor. Another one on BMW. So some of the prices of the bits, so this car is now 10 years old. It's maybe 2016. It's early Euro 6. It's got AdBlue, NOx control, and you're looking at, 2 knock sensors at $4,000. I mean, you
lots of software.
The cars are right off, isn't it? It's a write-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
it sort of enters the whole murky situation of will it be deleted to keep the car on the road, and then will it fail the emissions later on in its life? But yeah, I think there's a threat to longevity of diesel. If you look at what we're down in the single digits, new car sales for diesels are down in the 4, 5, 6%. 45% are petrol, and then the balance are some form of electric hybrid, as Rob said. So if you looked at that and said, right, if we leap 3 years, all of those cars that are sold today, if we go forward 3 years and look at what's landing as a 2024 car in 2027, so we would class it newish but out of warranty, the bulk of those, only 6% of them are going to be diesel. So if you look at, is there growth in diesel going forward, the answer's got to be no. There's definitely, if you said the best that could happen is it's going to be static, most likely with some of the NOx and emission reduction systems, the failure rates, and then we put a tank in an Audi. Well, we did an Audi Diag, and the garage at centre here put a tank in it, and the tank was 2,200 quid. So and if that was a 2014, and you go, 10-year-old car, and it's really adding no value, if you like, in inverted commas, to the client. The light wasn't on. I spent 2,200 quid plus all the Diag, and the light's now off. But the car hasn't suddenly leapt up in value. It doesn't go faster. It's not like new alloys or a remap or something. It's just it's difficult to justify. So I think that the diesels Euro 6. So 2016 on, with all of this stuff on there, is in jeopardy of not surviving long term. There has been mooting scrappage schemes then. So with the government's drive to electrification, like they did when we went from diesels to petrols back in the 2000s, whether we get to a diesel scrappage scheme or not, I think probably one thing, conventional wisdom says we're going to see less diesels. We're probably going to see more electrics and hybrids. Funny, but that's what we're doing here this week. You guys are here doing electrification and electric vehicles, getting ready for that future. I was just interested to see what your plans are. Of course, we're doing the cars that rock up to the workshop. Do we attract more electric vehicles proactively? Are we kind of floating along with what the clients are driving? Do you have a proactive plan to move your business, or is it more about reacting, I suppose?
I've been thinking about maybe changing the name because it's got diesel in it. I'm not really getting many customers ring up about, other cars. You
might be limiting your market a bit.
I think I'm limiting it a lot.
Yeah, the name can limit the market a bit, can't it? Yeah.
So
sure.
I've been maybe thinking about changing the name.
Go on. What are you thinking about?
I don't know.
Car Wizard, I think, will go down a treat.
Car Wizard.
Car Wizard. Where's the Car Wizard? I think we solved that for you, Wes. Car Wizardry,
I don't know if I specialised in a certain brand like Ford, because I see a few Transits and vans and things like that. Maybe go down the Ford route, specialise.
Yeah, there are a lot of them about. There's a lot of Fords on the road. Yeah, and if you get
and you don't see so many Ford specialists. Everyone's every garage and his wife is a German car specialist. Or FAG or whatever. You don't see that many Ford independent specialists, really, to be fair. So yeah, probably wouldn't hurt.
No.
Yeah, we try and stick to what brands we know.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Ford,
Yeah.
VAG, Mercedes, pretty much. And I don't really want to step outside.
No. There's enough work in that.
There's enough work, yeah.
You can do competently that. Yeah, it's keeping you busy enough.
Although it did the whole stepping into the electrified vehicle side did frighten me a little bit, but I think we're all going to have to do it.
Yeah.
We're all going to have to. Hence why I'm, well, not why I'm here, but this is part. If it wasn't here for this today, part of the Diagnostic course, I would have been on it at some point.
Yeah.
I was just made up it was part of it.
The point is, I don't think it's as daunting as some people think. A lot of it is just a lot of it's common sense. The health and safety side of things, a lot of it is common sense. But it's just getting your head round that change of propulsion system and being sensible about it and understanding the dangers as well, and just understanding the different drivetrains that are out there. None of it's rocket science, but it is just something different and something we're not used to.
Well, hydrogen's pretty rocket science. Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, it can be. Yeah. You perhaps hope it's not, but yeah. But again, I mean, you mentioned hydrogen, and I think we'd be silly not to mention it at this point, because we're saying at the moment that around about 50% of vehicle sales are electrified. But we are seeing even the likes of Toyota now advertising on the telly that they do a hydrogen vehicle. And perhaps what is round the corner isn't just a pure EV world, perhaps not even a hybrid electric world, but possibly some hydrogen as well. And we need to keep that open mind. I think probably more than ever, we are going to see more different types of drivetrains than we've ever had concurrently running in our industry. Bearing in mind our industry, if you go back 25, 28, 30 years, was predominantly petrol. Diesels went off to a different garage down the road because you went to the diesel specialist with your diesel van or your very rare diesel car. Then diesels became good. We got the common rail diesels came in, and all of a sudden diesels were not far different to work on to petrols really. Diesels got to the point where we had sort of 55% of new cars were diesel, and it would have been silly as a garage not to do diesels because you'd have been cutting your market in half really. So we all got into doing diesels and petrols and so on. So all of a sudden we were working on two different drivetrains really, they're petrol and diesel. And now we've just got to accept there are going to be probably 4 or 5 fairly common drivetrain propulsion systems that we're going to have to work on as garages, and they will include hybrids and pure electrics and possibly some hydrogen as well as it comes in. But I think the future at the moment isn't so completely focused on EV. Where if we were having this conversation perhaps 5 years ago, we'd have all been saying, it's going EV, it's all going to be EV. I think we're going to see a lot more hybrid, some EV, and some other propulsion methods coming in as we go along. Because when you look at the way so many of the vehicle manufacturers are just taking a little step back from EV at the moment and saying that's not the be-all and end-all now. There is a little bit of a step back, a little bit of a pause maybe on that. We have to accept, I think, that we're going to be working on half a dozen, maybe more, different types of propulsion system over the next few years.
Yeah, good point, yeah. Whether if I was going to put my peg in the ground, I'd probably say hybrid hydrogen. But before I put my toes up and start looking at the lawnmower from the wrong side, I think that's probably where we're going. But there's a lot of vitriol about the anti-EV market and then pro internal combustion engine, and I couldn't give a stuff. It's all out there. It's all going to break. It all needs fixing. Get some skills together, and then whatever you're faced with, you stand a chance of being able to fix, repair, and maintain. I think we've got to remember that the politicians are deciding about the future of automotive transport based on all sorts of whatever the latest gen is about what's great for the for the planet, and they don't really know, and sometimes they make bad decisions. Look at diesel. We threw out petrols and went diesel because of CO2 emissions, and it proved to be wrong. And now we're turning away from diesel because they've got serious health benefits that weren't made obvious at the outset, and we're going to EV, which again has its own issues with the battery, and the resources of the planet and charging infrastructure and all the other problems that it's got. We all knew that from the outset, and we're just nodding because the government have decided we're chucking out internal combustion engines from 2035. What did the government know? They know nothing. They know just about enough to stay in the job to the next election, and then you'll normally get that wrong and get turfed out anyway. So to put a lot of faith in the politicians, I would say, for our future, we just have to be, I think, dynamically reactive and go, do you know what, open-minded, couldn't care if it's powered by unicorn farts. As long as it's got mechanical bits in it, we shall fix it.
We've just got to be ready to welcome in them, whatever is coming through the door. We've got to be able to welcome it in, I think.
True enough.
And that involves training. It all comes back to training again. We've mentioned training before, but it all comes back to training and being able to work with these, whatever it is, 4, 5, 6 different types of propulsion system over the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Yep, I'm going to hedge my bets on unicorn fart power. That's what I'm going to do.
I'll tell you what, if you can invent it, I'll be your manager.
We've got to get them to a herd first of all, and then we'll worry about harvesting them. Cool stuff. As is typical, because lads, we've been going for a good stretch of time now, and it doesn't seem like it because we've had some good conversations going. I'm going to come to you now and talk about magic wishes. So you're going to get a wish if you could solve any of the trades and the trade and industry, if we put it as that sort of wider mark, if you could have a wish, swoosh your wand and change something that you think is either wrong and needs changing, or could be done better, or it could be completely out of the left field. If you had one magic wish, the genie came to town, we could spin the wand around. What kind of stuff do you think you'd like to see changed? It might be difficult to do and it might not be realistic, but what do you think would make a big difference to you, to others, to the trade?
3-day week.
3-day week.
Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be great.
I'll come and work for you then.
Yeah, 3-day week. Yeah,
I think really it's more the public perception of knowing what we have to do to fix their car.
Yeah,
and then maybe we'll get paid what we're worth.
Yeah,
maybe a bit of regulation over who can do what. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be trained
licensing
to tackle certain things.
Yeah, definitely regulation. I think needs to come in.
Yeah,
Any Tom, Dick, or Harry fixing the cars now, it's not right.
No, it's a good one. Regulation and being worth. Of course, conversations like we've had tonight, if it gets out there to a slightly wider audience about the things that we're facing in terms of helping people, or fixing people's cars and keeping them on the road, the level of complexity becomes more widely known. We're moving the needle ever so slightly by raising those. So I appreciate you giving up your time tonight, guys, to sit in and have the chats. And really, it is about raising awareness of the matters that we're facing.
I think it's getting there. I do think it's moving that way.
Yeah,
definitely. I think it's moving that way. But I don't know whether that's just down to the garages that aren't investing. Yeah, them not being able to complete stuff.
I think that's part of it, Dave. I think older guys retiring, guys that have maybe got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years to go, looking at it, going, "There's no way I can even keep up now. I'm so far behind. We're closing it. We're turning it into houses. We're not carrying on." The garage pool, I think, has shrunk. There aren't so many garages out there. Anecdotally, older garages or the capabilities, they're not able. Those that are still existing aren't doing those jobs, and you guys that are at the leading edge are reaping the benefits and the rewards. And you're seeing people that have had that story. They've gone to their favourite garage, maybe a back street place that isn't keeping up, and they've been told, no, you need to go somewhere else. And they're like shocked. What do you mean you can't do? No, it's too complicated. We've got. So they're coming to you guys, I think, with that in their mind, going, oh my God, I'm having to go to, in inverted commas, a guru, somebody that's up the food chain that can do this stuff. So the power or the balance of power isn't really with them as a consumer. They're coming to you for the service that you can do. And I see that as a big change, where people would come and almost tell you how much you ought to be charging for the work. They're now sort of coming going, can you help me? Because I'm stuck. And I think that's part of the perception thing, Dave. Yeah, very, very true. Yeah. Wes? 3-day week, I know, because we're going to bag that one. Dave's come up with an awesome idea there. What would you change about the industry? Yeah, it could be customers, it could be technology, it could be stuff that you're facing, it could be technician recruitment.
Technicians. I'd love to be able to get a technician, but well, I've tried hiring technicians, but because my workshop's a bit run down, I find it hard to employ. But I don't know what's regulation. Regulating governing body.
Yeah, you're in favour of that. You think that will drive the standards up a bit? Yeah, and help cut down on the cowboys.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Could be. I'm sitting on the fence a little bit like me Sermi there. I don't know whether that regulation is going to be another sort of form of Sermi that it doesn't address the right things. We end up doing it incorrectly. I don't know. I quite like the soft regulation, if you like, as we got it now with the professional register, the IMI, the structure of diagnostic techs and master techs and being qualified, and the EV regulations. I think if they kind of get regulation about doing some of the jobs, I think the regulation will come by virtue of you not being qualified and therefore not really able to do it. If there's a bit of strengthening on that, I'd be quite happy. The one thing I'd just shake my head at and wring my hands at is the farce about ADAS qualifications and ADAS calibrations and insurance companies not complying with their own rules and regulations about calibrations after the vehicle's had an accident, and trying not to pay garages if the light's not on, don't calibrate it even if things have been repaired. I think there's a whole lot of sketchiness where some of the grown-ups and the big organisations that ought to be doing the right thing aren't doing the right thing because there's financial penalties for doing the right thing. I always think that that's kind of dishonest and not great, and I think I always fear for regulations going to fall into that. There's too much for somebody to lose or to gain for it to work properly, and I'll just be sceptical at that. I think regulation by function, so you've got to be qualified to work on EV, you have to be qualified to do ADAS. I don't know anybody's been taken to task for not calibrating ADAS when they're doing bottom arms or they've done a wheel alignment and they haven't recalibrated the car. There seems to be very flaky. I don't know if there's any...
It'd take deaths realistically before anything happens, and probably the same actually with EV as well. That it would take us losing several technicians out there through electrocution or whatever before governments are going to take any form of action, and governing bodies are going to take any form of action. And as ever with any form of this regulation, it's always going to be, well, who's going to police it? Who's going to pay for it? And so that's why it's never happened. That's why it hasn't happened so far. Look at what happened. We thought that back on 4th of July 2010 when the F-gas regulations came in, we thought, oh, this could be the beginning of some form of licensing regulation and so on. And how many people have been done for? How many people have even been asked for their F-gas certificates along the way? It's just it's
truly say
jobs
they
for the boys,
it.
isn't it?
Yeah, they muffed that, didn't they, Rob? They could have they muffed it. Yeah. What about you, Rob? Any particular swooshes of the magic wand? What would you change if you could?
I think we've got to go back to grassroots, and we've actually got to look at what's happening in the colleges. And we know that there's a technician crisis. We know there aren't enough technicians. We know there aren't enough good technicians. And we as an organisation here are doing quite a bit about it and trying to get people in the door and getting people educated to a higher level in the if you like the qualified world, the guys that are already doing the job. But we haven't got enough guys and girls doing the job. And the only way we're going to fix that is we've got to attract boys and girls into training in college, and that means we've got to improve the perception of the industry. The way it's perceived by the public, the way it's portrayed in social media, common media on television and that sort of thing is really quite poor, because when people look at EastEnders and Coronation Street, how the motor trade's portrayed there. Yeah, we know it's not real life, but some people think it is real life. Let's face it, Tony Blair signed a petition to have, what's her name, Deirdre Barlow released from prison in Coronation Street all those years ago. People think it's real, and they think that's how the motor trade is. So we've got to, as an industry, improve the perception to attract high flyers into our industry. We're always going to need people who can fit filters, can do this, do that, fit tyres, that sort of stuff. But as time goes on, and it goes back to, as we were talking earlier on, about how complex our industry has got, vehicles are now so complex. We need high flyers. We don't need kind of grease monkeys, as we used to call them. We need high flying boys and girls coming into this industry, the computery geek people coming in as well, that we can hone and build on and make into great technicians to become the technicians of the future that can fix any of these problems, particularly as the cars get more and more computer based.
Yeah. So you're going to use your magic wand to stir up recruitment, training and education of young people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. That.
Yeah. Try and help.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Michael, any thoughts? What would you?
Just what I raised earlier on. I think a bit about the regulation. Just ensuring guys are qualified for the jobs they're undertaking.
Yeah. Both for I think that, for their own self-protection in a way, and for delivering and deriving value for the client, and taking money off people to fix a car, you ought to be doing it right, to the right standard, to the right spec. And it's a bit loose. You could be a butcher, a baker or a candlestick maker yesterday, and tomorrow you're a technician with a workshop, and there's nothing stopping you from portraying that image, no qualifications required. And it is a bit bonkers when you're thinking, I got a 1.5 ton, missile traveling at 70 miles an hour, and somebody that was stuffing sausages yesterday is fitted brake pads tomorrow. It is scary, and as Rob said, it goes down to the significant impact. There aren't enough people being killed by people messing about with cars that make it not quite a big enough issue to solve. But you could go the other way and say you could do a good job by making it more professional, and just stopping people from doing it. It would raise the level. It would enable us to charge more and then pay people more, and the whole thing becomes a kind of virtuous circle. You can pay the wages, you can recruit people, of a decent quality into the industry. And I think, the recruitment of, the licensing has definitely got an element of lifting the level and enabling us to be, more professional and exclusive, and be able to charge more. So, guys, that's been an awesome conversation piece. Thanks very much for contributing. I know it was a bit daunting to jump in when we sat down, but I think you've all represented your own corner and the industry very well. So thank you truly for your time, for sitting down and joining in.
Thank you, James.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to what tomorrow brings with electric vehicles.
Can't wait.
No, good stuff. We'll see you then.